us. The Simola Hillclimb is a motoring event that would bring scores of visitors every year from across the country and indeed the globe to the tourism hotspot of Knysna in the Southern Cape. Now, the event rivaled the Knysna Oyster Festival in terms of numbers of visitors and economic stimulus that it brought to that area. But the pandemic and lockdown brought all of that to a screeching halt last year, and the organisers have had to pivot. Let's find out exactly how they've done that. We cross now live to Knysna with that beautiful backdrop. I'm joined by the MD of the Knysna Speed Festival, Ian Shrosbree. Ian, thank you so much for joining us. Now, this Simola downhill, I didn't even know it existed up until I met you in Knysna a while ago, started reading more about it. eNCA has done stories on it. This event is massive for petrol heads and their families every year. Tell us very quickly what the event is about and how it came about.
Well, so yeah, thank you for having me. It started in 2009, and it resulted from not a pandemic as we're suffering now, but it resulted from the downturn in the economy after the financial crisis. And Knysna's economy was built on tourism and building construction, and both of them dropped off significantly. So a couple of us said, what can we do to bring some people to town? And as I've been involved in events, and we were all petrol heads, we said, well, there's a hill here. There's no racetrack, but there's a hill, and let's start a hill climb, which is in South Africa has died off over the years as a popular form of motorsport, but it's still very strong in Europe and America. So we started a hill climb with very small ambitions, but when it worked in the first year, we decided that let's put a plan together and build it into something that can really attract a lot of people. And over the last 12 years, but we've only run 10 events, we've managed to do that. And as you alluded to, it's, we attract spectators from overseas and we attract competitors from overseas. And it's really got onto the world map as a hill climb and motorsport event.
Give us an idea, if you're thinking about your event in 2019, what kind of stimulus did your event bring to the Knysna area?
Yeah, so the thing about our event, we have a limited number of competitors, but we have a lot of spectators that come. So they spend a lot of money. So although our numbers of people is the Oyster Festival, they spend a lot more money, and all the impact studies that were done by the garden route tourism bodies determine that actually brings in as much, if not a bit more money than the Oyster Festival, because the people are here to have a good time and to spend money, rather than competing in events where they obviously take it a little bit easier, don't spend as much money in restaurants and so on. So I don't have a fixed figure in terms of the economic impact, but we estimate it's probably about 50 billion rand.
Gosh, that is not a small number. And then 2020 happens, and we hear about this thing, COVID-19. How exactly did that unfold for you last year, and how have you looked at least keeping the Simola Hillclimb top of mind for your specific market?
Yeah, so it obviously was a huge challenge for us. Running one event a year, it's one income source, and to lose it provided us with some serious challenges. Thankfully we had a very strong following from our competitors. A lot of them donated their entry fees from the 2020 event to us to just keep it going and to keep our staff members employed. So we had to just cut away every unnecessary expense. We firstly postponed from May last year to September. Our traditional date is May. We would like to be a bit like the Durban July, where people know that the first weekend of May is hill climb weekend. So we postponed to September, and we hope to run in September. Then we have to postpone that again. So then we moved it to May this year. And then with the anticipated third wave, we've moved it to September this year, and we will run it. Because the event is such a spectator-friendly event, and we've got a great vibe, and we've targeted it as a lifestyle event for families that aren't necessarily petrolheads, that also just want to come out for a good time. We attract a broad mix of people to the event, and so the spectators are a really big part of it. But we didn't want to run without spectators, but it does look with this third wave that September we're going to have to run without spectators.
Oh.
So in the interim, fortunately, I've been looking at esports and what was happening in gaming and that scenario, and started kind of getting my head around saying, well, we run the Hill Club once a year, been a once a year income source. What else can we do to keep it alive during the year? I started looking at esports before COVID. So when COVID came along, luckily I'd done a bit of research, and then we found a great partner in Monarch Events who run the eNCA studios in Cape Town. And we partnered and created a virtual version of the hill. So they came along, scanned it, and from April, May this year, we ran our first virtual hill climb, which was great because it allowed people who don't normally get into the hill climb from a competitor point of view. It allowed people around the world to be able to experience the hill, albeit in a slightly different format. It allowed them to experience it. It kept our brand top of mind. And it went off exceptionally well. So we're looking now how to run it into the future, and also how to monetize it. Obviously, it costs a bit of money to put together, and we didn't make any money out of it. It costs money between us and Monarch. But it's a really exciting way forward with a virtual. As you know, the esports and gaming world is growing rapidly,
and there's a huge untapped market there as well, as you've just mentioned. If you are, perhaps let me end off by asking you this question. The times are really tough, and in as much as you've been able to keep your event going in some way, shape or form, the fact that you can't have spectators, of course, has a knock-on effect to the local economy. Are you hopeful that in as much as you might not be able to have spectators this September, fingers crossed, you may be able to have some under strict, maybe restrictions from a COVID point of view? Are you hopeful that once we eventually get more and more people vaccinated and that kind of thing, that your event will be able to grow and continue to be such an important source of development for that area, perhaps in 2022?
Yes, very much so. So I think with vaccinations, and when you look at what's happening around the world, sports events are allowed people in limited numbers to come through. So we're absolutely hoping, if we can't have any spectators in September, we're still hoping we can have a few spectators. But if we can't, then we really are targeting 2022. And I believe that we definitely need to have spectators by 2022. And I think sport in general needs to have spectators by 2022. Otherwise, even the big sports brands, rugby, cricket, soccer, will be in a bit of trouble. So I'm really hoping that the vaccination rollout is successful, it happens quickly, and that we open up to spectators. So we're hopeful, and I do believe it will happen, even if it is